History's most dangerous katana, 36 poets immortalized in steel, Kasen Kanesada. The name sounds elegant. Kasen Kanesada, Immortal Poet. You would never guess it was a twisted joke, soaked in blood. Hosokawa Tadaoki, Warlord, Daimyo, and one of the 7 foremost disciples of the tea-master Sen no Rikyū, named his blade after the 36 Immortal Poets, the most celebrated literary figures in Japanese history. The reference was not literary admiration. It was a body count. 36 men, executed by Tadaoki's own hand. With that blade. The cruelest part? Those men are only remembered because of the joke that erased them. No names survive, no faces, no crimes, just their number. 36 immortal poets, passed down the centuries in steel. The summons. Yatsushiro Castle, 1632. Tadaoki is 69 years old. He retired 12 years earlier, handing governance of the Hosokawa domain to his son Tadatoshi. After many years at war, he was supposed to be finished with killing. Instead, he had turned to the arts, culture, and tea ceremony. But as his son's retainers failed him, Tadaoki grew concerned. The council was weak. The governance had gone soft. So he called for them. Imagine the scene. A summons from the retired lord. Men filing into a chamber at Yatsushiro, expecting a lecture from the old man who was once a warrior. Perhaps complaints about their performance, perhaps demands for reform. Instead, the doors close. Tadaoki draws the blade he has carried for decades, a simple sword, a working uchigatana, 60 centimeters of Mino steel forged by the smith Nosada. Its weight, familiar in Tadaoki's hands after years of hard use. Then he begins. The sources do not agree on what followed. Some say they were criminals, others say vassals or retainers. The number itself varies, 36 in most tellings, 6 in others. But the accounts agree on this. When Tadaoki finished, he counted the dead, and the number reminded him of something, not from the battlefields of old, from his new courtly life. The 36 Immortal Poets, Fujiwara no Kinto's anthology of Heian court verse. From that day forward he called the sword Kasen, Immortal Poet, combined with the smith's signature Kanesada, a literary joke, written in blood. The legend stands. The official chronicle of Tadaoki's life does not record this event. The Hosokawa Tadaoki ko Gonenpu documents his battles, his political alliances, his pursuit of the way of tea. Of his 36 executions in retirement, only silence. Researchers have noted the gap. Some suggest the number was exaggerated. Others suggest the killings happened but were too brutal to document. But here is what the silence cannot explain. The Hosokawa family kept the blade and kept its name. They displayed it for 4 centuries. No one in the family ever denied the story. If the executions never happened, why let the legend stand? Serenity and Rage. Perhaps because the story fit the man everyone already knew. A vassal's account called Tadaoki the most short-tempered person under heaven. This was more than gossip. It was documented, written in the Chado Shiso Densho, a record of the great tea masters. The man who appreciated the serenity of the tea ceremony had also been known to boil with rage. Once, at just 15 years of age, a catapult stone grazed his face in battle. His lord at the time, Oda Nobunaga, the warlord then unifying Japan through conquest, praised the wound as a mark of courage, a great honor. Tadaoki kept fighting. Years later, he killed his brother-in-law Ishiki Yoshisada. He believed it was his duty after Ishiki had backed the wrong faction following Nobunaga's assassination. Tadaoki lured him to a castle under pretense of negotiation, then cut him down. His own sister attacked him afterward, furious at the deception and loss of her husband. She caught his nose with a dagger before she was stopped. Another scar Tadaoki wore for life. He was married to Akechi Tama, daughter of the man who killed Nobunaga. when her father's treason made her a liability, Tadaoki hid her in the mountains for 2 years rather than divorce her. She converted to Christianity in secret, against his explicit wishes, taking the baptismal name Gracia. Before the Battle of Sekigahara, enemy forces surrounded her residence, demanding she become a hostage. Her faith forbade suicide, so she arranged to be killed by a retainer rather than dishonor her husband or betray her god. When Tadaoki learned of her death while on campaign, he was devastated but fought on, taking 136 heads for his lord at Sekigahara. Ishida Mitsunari, the man who had ordered the Gracia be taken hostage, was captured fleeing the battlefield and beheaded in Kyoto. Although he had opposed her conversion to honor his beloved wife, Tadaoki asked a Jesuit priest to perform Gracia's funeral a year after her death. He attended and reburied her remains himself. They share a grave in Kyoto to this day. This is the man who retired to pursue poetry and tea, until he felt called out of retirement by the vassals who failed his son. Mounting and Legacy. Kasen Kanesada itself rests today in the Issei Bunko Museum in Tokyo, 60.5 centimeters, standard fighting length, not ceremonial. The steel shows wear from use, but the mounting Tadaoki designed for it became legendary in its own right. Stingray skin on the scabbard, it possesses a stripped-down beauty in which the textured material itself serves as functional grip and natural ornamentation. Iron fittings, understated, made for use, not for show. The aesthetic of his tea ceremony training applied to a killing tool. This was no accident. Tadaoki had studied directly under Rikyū, inheriting the master's philosophy of restraint, imperfection, and function over ornament. When Rikyū was forced to commit suicide by their mutual lord Toyotomi Hideyoshi, Tadaoki was one of only 2 disciples who dared retrieve his master's head for burial. He founded his own school of tea ceremony, the Sansai-ryu, and when the Hosokawa clan took control of Higo province, his aesthetic evolved into the regional style. Craftsmen in his domain produced sword fittings after his fashion. Retainers imitated his taste. By the mid-Edo period, what began as one lord's preference had spread throughout Japan. The mounting style still carries the sword's name, Kasen Koshirai. 4 centuries later, sword mounters still replicate it. Unnamed Immortals. The 36 men remain unnamed. We know the blade. We know the brutal smirk embedded in its title. We know the mounting that made it an icon. We know the dangerous reputation of the man who wielded it. But we do not know who died. Were they criminals, incompetent officials, men who simply displeased a lord who never learned to temper his rage? On this, the chronicle is silent. Only their number survives, and the name that commemorates it. 36 poets, 36 corpses, one sword that lives on, immortal. At Dream of Japan, we build blades meant to be used, not preserved behind glass. Steel that earns its wear, fittings that age with purpose, the way it has been handed down. This has been History's Most Dangerous Katana, Episode 6. Next time, a sword tested on 7 stacked corpses. One swing, the result engraved on the tang as proof. Nanatsudo Otoshi. Like, subscribe, and join the newsletter for more real samurai history and epic sword content.